So effective storytelling. Some of the things we're going to go over today are what makes stories effective, elements of an effective story, different types of stories that you can tell, and then work on your own story. This, as I mentioned, this is kind of a lead up for HIV Speaks on Jones Street. So we do kind of have a focus on effective storytelling and more of like the elevator speech to go talk to a legislator type of way. I do apologize, guys. But I think that these are tools that you can use for as building blocks to write your story, to share on social media, to share with different people in your life, to write, to make videos. We're just talking about how to, effectively get your story across. But these are topics that we're going to build on and continue to have different types of storytelling trainings down the line. Okay, so what makes stories so effective? They build trust. So stories are really compelling because they engage the listener, they build familiarity, they help you connect, and it allows the audience to enter your world and see through your eyes in a way that helps them understand a topic that they don't necessarily have personal experience with. They make information more memorable. Studies actually suggest that you're 22 times more likely to remember a fact when it is in a story, as opposed to just giving somebody a fact like straight. They also help you connect emotionally. I think probably a lot of us have heard the Maya Angelou quote, "I've learned that people will forget what you said and what you did, but will never forget how you made them feel." And that's really the essence of storytelling, right? We're trying to make people feel an emotion because that emotion is going to be what gets people to act. So if you have a negative emotion, it might get you to protest or write a letter to somebody. If you have a positive emotion, it might get them to donate or come volunteer with you. It depends on what you're looking for people to do. So elements of an effective story, simple language. So really you want to keep, you might impress some people if you use a lot of big words and yada yada. But really, if you can keep it with heartfelt language that a fifth grader would understand, you'll be able to connect with anyone. And I heard somebody say the other day that being able to effectively communicate in simple terms that anyone can understand is really one of the most important tools that we have in the movement. And that's how we can bring in anyone, because a lot of people understand some of these topics and these feelings and emotions that we're talking about, but they might not understand the policy or the buzzwords. So if we can take data or concepts and be able to connect them to anybody in language that they understand, that is a really powerful tool and can bring a lot of people in to the work that we're doing. Remind people why they care. So our goal is to make the audience become part of your world and really see these issues through your eyes, because most legislators are not people living with HIV, but we can get them to care about these issues, and if we can get them to understand where we're coming from. So if you back your story with data, that lends a lot of credibility to what you're saying. People understand that you're not just trying to get one over on them, make an emotional appeal, that you have facts on your side. And there are many people in the state or the country who are using different services, or you have identified a need in the community. That's important to share and weave into your story. An effective story is able to make connections. So this is a really important one as we're going to talk to legislators, but also when talking to anyone. It's important to understand who your audience is, where they come from, what they like, what they want to hear. And that can help you tailor your story. Although you want to keep it authentic to you, you can give it a spin to make it something that they want to hear. Or it doesn't even have to be part of your story either. It can be in your introduction. If you go to Raleigh and the legislator, you know that you guys live in the same town, you went to the same high school, you know that they care about that they have 5 kids or something like that. You can use that information to be able to make sure that they hear what you want them to hear. And the last is a call to action. We never want to leave our audience hanging. Like we've given them this emotion and told them this story, and then they say, like, well, what do I do? We want to tell them what we expect or want from them at the end to do with this information. So donate, volunteer, advocate, fundraise. When we're going up to the General Assembly, usually we want them to sponsor a bill, vote for the bill. We want them to support certain agencies that fund the programs that we want to be funded. Whatever the specific ask is. Okay. And then there are different types of stories. Obviously, there's going to be 1,000 different types of stories, but in terms of some of these stories that advocates can tell, there's a couple. I've identified 3 that I think can be really helpful as a framework to be able to tell a compelling story to somebody with a call to action at the end. So the first one, a turning point. So this example is climate change, but we can, sub in a lot of different things. So basically this is I used to believe something, then something changed my mind, and now I understand that this is a huge issue. A lot of people use this around queer issues, like maybe I used to be a Christian that held certain beliefs about gay people. And then I had an experience with queer people in my life, and I understand, and I'm still a Christian, but maybe I understand that they are part of God's world. And, now I want to make sure that we have laws that protect them. So this one says, for a long time, climate change wasn't an issue I really cared about. I had other priorities that were more important to me. But then I had a baby, and I realized that the scary effects of climate change that seem so far off will happen in this lifetime. Now I see that action on climate change can't wait. I want to leave the planet in good shape for my kids and their kids. Will you act to support this issue? The second one is making a moral value. Hold on, I have a little beep. Let me just make sure that there aren't people in the waiting room. Okay. So this one is used a lot by like different moral leaders. So this one I said, if you are a Christian, a lot of like religious leaders might who have sway in the community might make this argument to a legislator. But that doesn't mean that we can't all make moral arguments for different issues that are important to us. So as a Christian, I believe that there's that God is in every person. That means every person has potential and the right to live with dignity. For me, health justice is more than just policy. It's providing people with the support they need to fulfill their potential and use the gifts that God gave them. How does your faith lead you to act on this issue? So there's a lot of people that come to this work through a church ministry or are part of an organization that is religiously founded. So this might be an argument or that might feel natural to you. The last one I think is going to be the one most people are going to kind of gravitate towards, and also can be some of the most compelling, especially for a legislator to hear, because you are somebody in their district who is dealing with an issue or has had a certain life experience, and you want help from the person who is elected to serve you. So 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with HIV. My doctor said if I take my medicine every day for the rest of my life, I can still live a long, healthy life. I want to live, but I didn't know if I could afford the medication. Luckily, I was able to get on Medicaid, and I've seen in my own life how much of a life-saving program it is. I knew I had to join the fight for Medicaid expansion so more people can get the care that I received without worrying if they can afford it. Thank you for expanding Medicaid last year. Will you continue to support and fund Medicaid in North Carolina? So that one might resonate with a lot of people. And these are just really, really brief, enough to put on a slide. But obviously there are some details of your life that to weave into the story that might make it a little bit longer, and that's okay. We're looking for, you'll probably get like a minute to talk. You want to keep it brief, your elevator speech, but there is time to, say what's important to you. Okay, so we are going to pick some topics, but I guess first, before we kind of jump into practicing writing some of our own stories using some of these tools, does anybody have questions or want me to go back over any of those portions? Okay. So what I would like everyone to do, I put 3 sample advocacy topics. Those are going to be topics that we'll focus on at HIV Speaks, Medicaid, that our legislators, even though they've expanded Medicaid, will continue to support and fund Medicaid expansion. And the Department of Health and Human Services will get enough funding. The second is funding of HIV services, so Ryan White and HMAP, drug assistance programs. Those, I believe, are through also the Department of Health and Human Services, so just making sure that those get the funding that they need and support from legislators, because I think, if you're not aware, we are in a pretty conservative House and Senate right now. They want to spend a lot of money on like school vouchers and different stuff, and they're not afraid to take money from other things. So we want to make sure that we're going and letting them know about the topics and programs that are important for us that they keep funding. The last one is the Good Samaritan bill. We talked a little bit about it a couple weeks ago, but if you're not familiar, there has been a push the last couple years to expand and modernize the Good Samaritan bill, which basically shields folks who are at a party from prosecution for having drugs if they call 911 in the case that somebody has overdosed. So a lot of people who might at parties or get-togethers, if somebody overdoses, they're afraid to call emergency services because they don't want to get in trouble, or they go hide the drugs before they call emergency services, and that was kind of the critical time that that person needed to survive. So we want to make it easy for people to make that choice without being scared to call 911 and to save a life. That being said, these are not the only topics that you can focus on. We talked a little bit about medical debt too. That the Justice Center, who we partner with, has decided that they are not moving forward with, even though it passed crossover, they're not moving forward with pursuing the Medical Debt De-weaponization Act during this session, but that doesn't mean that it, we can't talk about it with legislators so that it's on their mind for the long session next year. Same with the Good Sam. It's not gonna go anywhere here in the short session, but it doesn't hurt to kind of get it in front of them for the long session next year. So this is a lot of information, but I have put some facts together. So I'd like everyone to kind of pick a topic that resonates with you, that you would feel comfortable talking about, or that you have a specific ask about. So whether you're looking for more funding, you want legislators to support it, and then we'll take about 5 minutes, and we can take more if we need. Start writing your story. So maybe pick one of those frameworks. So if you want to do the moral imperative or the personal impact or a time that you changed your mind about something. And then weave in your experience. Does somebody have a question? Okay, if you do, jump back in. Weave in your experience. There's some different facts that you could include if you want to just kind of pick one. So like if I was talking about Good Sam, I might say that a really close friend of mine died from an overdose a few years ago. This is a huge issue in North Carolina. In North Carolina, we lose close to 10 people a day to reversible overdoses. And that way it's personal, but then a legislator can also see the scale of the issue.